Hello and welcome to Lecture 5, our last lecture in the series of lectures on civic ecology. Today, I think we have a very important lecture because I want to introduce civic ecology in practice. So after spending some lectures here on discussing the theoretical aspects of civic ecology, I hope I can carry on to you the view that we pack all those theoretical aspects discussed in those classes today and present them in a form of practice. Before I start, I would like to cite a quote of René Dubos, which is very compatible with the nature of this class, with the aspect of civic ecology. So according to him, our planet is so diverse from all points of view that its problems can be tackled effectively only by dealing with them at the regional level in the unique physical, climatic, and cultural context. So in other words, he is saying that although we have problems that have been expressed in a global scale, the proper way to deal with this problem is at the regional level, at the community level, which is the scope, the area of action of civic ecology. So today we're going to do our lecture a little bit different. So we start with episode 1 as usual, and we're going to discuss collaborative inquiry. And then on episode 2, we're going to talk about adaptive management. And then in episode 3, instead of having our traditional interview, I would like to present a case study to illustrate civic ecology in action. From episode 1, the study of collaborative inquiry, I hope that you will learn the relevance of methodological or epistemological pluralism in civic ecology praxis, civic ecology's approach to developing connected understanding and action, and finish with the episode with a collaborative approach to inquiry. So therefore, the episode 1 is structured in 3 parts. Part 1, foundation of civic ecology praxis. In part 2, I will discuss the process of learning through collaborative inquiry, and then finish the episode with general conclusions. I would like to start episode 1 with 2 propositions that are very, very important to the practice of civic ecology. Proposition number 1 is that human and natural systems exist as interdependent, co-evolving social ecological systems with complex interactions between human decisions and ecosystem functioning. So we had an opportunity to discuss this interlinked nature of the human natural system when we cover here in the previous lecture the subject of complex adaptive systems. So because of these linkages between human and natures, human environment systems are more than merely the sum of their parts, but rather Gestalt systems whose nature and structure is defined by the interactions between its components. Therefore, the lesson from this is that humans are an integral part of nature, and therefore human and natural systems are interlinked and cannot be managed separately. However, when we look at traditional management science, we often find that management science divorces users from management. Stakeholders are not involved in analysis, in decision-making, as well as management strategies are based on land capability, resource availability, rather than on the capacities and needs of people. Management strategies are usually based on partial perspectives of scientific disciplines, and therefore they lack of framework for integration. Proposition number 2, that is equal relevant to the practice of civic ecology, is the fact that successful transitioning to a sustainable trajectory rests on three capacity of human systems, which will be discussed in our lecture today. Number one, on collaborative, participatory, or cooperative inquiry or learning. Number two, adaptive management. And number three, transformative change. So before we start to analyze those in detail, I would like to define what I call civic ecology praxis. So civic ecology praxis is a multi-perspectival process incorporating and integrating methodological or epistemological pluralism, collaborative inquiry, and adaptive management to promote social change and connected action. By methodological pluralism, what I mean is a view that different methodologies or ways of knowing are necessary to attain a more complete understanding of the world. Collaborative inquiry is a participatory, democratic process concerned with bringing together action and reflection, theory and practice, and participation with others, according to the work done by British social scientist John Heron and Peter Reason. And finally, adaptive management is a systematic process for continually improving management practices and policies by learning from the outcomes of operational programs. Let's start by taking a quick look here at methodological pluralism, or diverse epistemologies. Methodological pluralism has its philosophical foundation in constructivism, which holds that realities are constructions of the human minds, are social constructs that represent the outside world. Therefore, people with different experiences, with different levels of interaction with the world in different contexts, may very well construct different visions of reality. Thus, there are many ways of knowing or gathering knowledge about human natural systems due to this context aspect of the interaction between human and the environment, including both traditional and scientific approaches. Because all forms of knowledge are context dependent, they are partial. That is, no one understanding is complete. Therefore, an exclusive method applied widely will impoverish our vision of reality and exclude alternative solutions that may be more relevant in a given context. The conclusion from this are two important conclusions that is used in civic ecology practice. Number one is that different kinds of knowledge are needed to address complex human environment problems. Number two is that identification of needs in decision-making requires collaborative learning and participation. By that I mean those most affected by a decision should have the most to say. So civic ecology practice builds upon this view. Let's start by look at collaborative inquiry first. Collaborative inquiry was designed by John Heron in 1996 and later expanded with Peter Reason's work. Collaborative inquiry is a way of working with other people who have similar concerns and interests in order to first understand the world, make sense of their lives, and develop new and creative ways of looking at things. Number two, learn how to act to change things they may want to change and find out how to do things better. In traditional social research, mainstream social research, the roles of researchers and subjects are mutually exclusive. By that I mean researchers only contribute the thinking that goes into the project. They don't directly interact with the group, and the subjects only contribute the action to be studied. Decisions are made on behalf of subjects who are rarely consulted And because of this, they often boycott these decisions as they do not see them as relevant and useful. In collaborative inquiry, all active subjects are fully involved as co-researchers in all research decisions regarding to both content and method. All participants are involved in the design and management of the inquiry. All get into the experience in action that's been explored. They are involved in making sense and drawing conclusions, and can take initiative and exert influence on the process. Knowledge from a collaborative inquiry perspective is a living, evolving process of coming to know, rooted in everyday experience. We draw on at least 4 independent ways or forms of knowing as we encounter and act in the world. The first one is what John Hare and Peter Reason call experiential knowing. By experiential knowing, we mean knowing that emerges through direct face-to-face encounter with a person, a place, or a thing. It is knowing through empathy and resonance, and it's almost impossible to put this form of knowing into words. The second important form of knowing is called presentational knowing. Presentational knowing is knowing that emerges from experiential knowing and provides the first form of expression by drawing on expressive forms of imagery through story, drawing, sculpture, movement, dance, and etc. We can also understand presentational knowing as metaphoric or aesthetic imagery clothing our experiential knowing. So we have the experiential knowing, and as I said, the experiential knowing is most of the time difficult to be expressed in words, so therefore they use imagery to represent that form of knowing. And the imagery themselves is what we call presentational knowing. The third form of knowing, proposed by John Hare and Peter Reason, is called propositional knowing. We in the West are more familiar with this form of knowing. Propositional knowing is knowing that is expressed through ideas and theories, knowing expressed in conceptual terms, expressed in informative statements like mathematical modeling, computational science, etc. So usually a personal researcher confronted with propositional knowing is asking the question, which theory or theories resonate the best with the problem? Or which methodology would suit well? The last form of knowing, according to Hare and Reason, is what is called practical knowing. So practical knowing is knowing acquired through action in the world and often demonstrated in a skill or competence. In collaborative inquiry, knowing will be more valid if these 4 ways of knowing are combined. In other words, if knowing is grounded in experience, can be expressed through stories and images, understood through theories which make sense, and expressed in worthwhile action. Based on these 4 forms of knowing, Reason and Hare proposed a 4-step phase for collaborative inquiry. They said the collaborative inquiry should start what was called reflection phase. So the reflection phase is essentially a phase involving propositional or conceptual knowing, some type of theory or model. Then we move on to what they call the first action phase, which involves practical knowing, implementing propositional knowing in the world in order to get some practical knowing. The third phase they called second action phase, which results from phase 2, and can lead to further understanding. This phase involves primarily experiential or face-to-face knowing. And then we move to the fourth phase, which is called second reflection phase. This phase, reflection of experiences and data collected in phases 2 and 3, the first action phase and the second action phase respectively, may reframe the original ideas which we started with in phase 1. This phase involves primarily presentational knowing. Now, what is the relevance of collaborative inquiry to ecology practice, civic ecology praxis? Well, I would start by saying that research and development in collaborative inquiry reflect the different views and objectives of local stakeholders. As civic ecology praxis is always been developed within a context in which we have many perspectives from different stakeholders. So it is therefore important that research and development taking place in that context reflect the different views and objectives of the stakeholders. Secondly, it focuses on the interactions of humans with each other and with their natural environment, rather than exclusively on the natural system, on natural resources. So therefore, there is no dualist separation between the stakeholders, the users, and the resources, or between resource and resource users. And the stakeholders become experts. The collaborative learning inquiry is a learning process in which stakeholders become educated. They learn about the problem being studied, instead of being mere receivers of expert opinion, which is a characteristic of a technocratic system. Also, stakeholders are included in all phases of the management process. Decisions are achieved through a dialectic process involving all the stakeholders, and the experimental results are interpreted through interactions and owned by stakeholders. So we know that this is not the way done in traditional technocratic management. Therefore, the implementation of collaborative inquiry in civic ecology practice in natural resource management face some challenges. For example, the stakeholders need to embrace a collaborative dialectic process of decision-making, experimentation, and evaluation. They have to accept and be part of that process. Secondly, scientists, local officials, and stakeholders must all be willing to learn a skill outside the area of expertise. Perhaps even a new language needs to be developed to facilitate communication across disciplines and social backgrounds. And most importantly, the institutions involved in this process must change their modes of operation. In conclusion, collaborative inquiry is about community, democracy, and the natural world within which we exist and interact. Engaging people into active learning within communities of practice, thinking, acting, and learning together in order to understand the world, make sense of their lives, and develop new and creative ways of looking at things, as well as learning how to act to change things they may want to change, and find out how to do things better. For completing this episode 1, I propose that you try to answer these 3 questions. Question number 1 is, why do natural resources are collapsing in spite of existence of a highly developed theory of resource management? We see signs of natural resource collapse everywhere, in the fishing industry, in the expansion of erosion and degradation, in the shift of rich rangelands into desert lands. So how that can happen in spite of tremendous development, theoretic development, and resource management? Secondly, what three capacities of human systems are needed for a successful transition to a more just and sustainable society? Justify why we need this. And third, how does collaborative inquiry, as exposed in episode 1, can facilitate participation and enhance decision-making in a stakeholder process? In the next episode, we move to the second important aspect of collaborative, of civic ecology practices, which is integrated with civic ecology. We call this second aspect of civic ecology praxis adaptive management. So I'll see you then. Thank you.